everyone, and welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I'm going to go through the biggest mistakes that I've ever made in my life and what I learned from them. Mistakes used to be something that I really hated, and I used to really beat myself up every time I made a mistake, and I used to really hate it. But now I try and see mistakes as lessons and learnings in disguise, because if you did make a mistake, but you learned from it and you moved on and you became a better person because of it, was it really a mistake after all? So the first mistake, and I believe the biggest mistake that I've made in my life, was not trying. In high school, I went through this stage when I was about 14 to 16 years old, and I really just stopped trying in my life. I skipped school a lot, I wasn't spending a lot of time by myself, and I was just going out partying all the time. I really wasn't thinking about my future, and I really just wasn't taking care of myself. And it all became a bit of a slippery slope for me. First, I stopped dancing, which was one of the things that I loved. Then I stopped going to school. I started hanging out with the wrong people. I wasn't taking care of myself and my health, and I just wasn't trying at school, and I wasn't getting good grades. And I reached the lowest point in my life when I was 16 years old. I didn't have any friends that I could rely on, and I was depressed. And I really hated spending time by myself because I just didn't like the person that I was. I knew that I was wasting my potential, and I knew that I could do more with myself, but I was afraid to try, because at least if I wasn't trying at the time, then at least I could always think to myself, oh, well, maybe if I tried, I would be here, or maybe if I tried, I would be better. But if I actually tried and failed, then that wouldn't be a mystery anymore, and I couldn't really dream and think that I could be better than what I was. I think that the idea of actually trying and then failing scared me so much more. By the time I started year 11, this was the year that I really wanted to start trying again and trying to improve all aspects of my life to just become happier. It started with just really small things. I started eating healthy, I started drinking more water, I started exercising, I stopped skipping classes, and I started to really try at school. And I also stopped hanging around with people who weren't really lifting me up and weren't really good friends to me. And bit by bit, I saw my life and my future transform. I went to a selective school, so people at my school were really smart. And by the way, if you don't know what a selective school is a school in New South Wales where you actually need to do a special test in order to get into a selective school. I think that going to a selective school was a little bit challenging for me because people at my school were so smart, and I always felt very average and ordinary. In fact, the average ATAR at my school was 90, and at any other school that would be a really high ATAR, but at my school, just getting a 90 ATAR was average at best. After improving all aspects of my life in year 11, in year 12, all my hard work paid off. I got into the degree that I wanted at university, which was a law and communications degree, and I honestly never thought it would be possible for me, and I just felt so happy and proud and grateful at the time. So what I learned from this mistake was, it's better to try and fail at something than to never try at all. I used to be really afraid of trying and then failing, but I think that the biggest mistake that you can make is not trying at all. And by the way, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you give this video a like. I feel a bit awkward posting this video because I've never really talked about my background and my history before, so if you appreciate this honesty and transparency, I would really appreciate a like on this video. The second biggest mistake that I've made is not being kind to myself. And this is something that I still struggle with today, but I've really tried to monitor my thoughts and try to separate productive thoughts from unproductive thoughts. And now I try to treat myself with the same kindness that I would treat a close friend. And I think it makes sense because if you had a close friend and they came to you and they told you about a business idea that they wanted to start, would you start shutting them down? Would you start talking about all of their flaws and how it won't work? Of course you wouldn't, and neither would I. But why do we say these things to ourselves? So being more kind to myself is one of the habits that I really want to try and build this year, because I think when we are negative to ourselves, it really just isn't productive and it's not going to help us get any further. And I think there is, of course, a bit of a balance with this. I think that some people may struggle with negative self-talk and some people might be a little bit too optimistic. So I do try and find a balance so that I'm not completely ignoring all of the risks out there, but I am still trying to just be kinder to myself and to treat myself in a more fair way. So my third biggest mistake was caring too much about what other people thought of me and not caring enough about what I myself thought of myself. I think that when we are young, we place a lot of emphasis on the way that other people see us, and it can really start to impact the way that we see ourselves. In high school, I had this bully and he would always pick on me. He would be in some of my classes, so every time I would put my hand up to ask a question because I was confused about something, he would always make fun of me and he would always just shut me down and make me feel like I was really stupid for asking questions in class. And if I could go back in time, I would have told myself not to worry about what other people think, because I think that there are some people who will try and lift you up and will try and be positive and help you get somewhere in life. And there are other people who will try to bring you down. And I think it's important to listen to the people who are on your side and really want to bring you up, and to try and shut out those negative people who are really just trying to bring you down. And I think that finding who are the ones who are trying to build you up and who are the ones that are trying to bring you down can be really challenging, and it's something that I'm still struggling with. And that leads me to my fourth biggest mistake, which is not surrounding myself with people who are trying to bring me up. I think that we can all relate to this point. There are some people who are never really there for us completely, but we always try to chase those people because, of course, you always want what you can't have. But when I look back at my life, I think I spent way too much time trying to chase the people who didn't really care about me, and not enough time actually giving back to the people who were so supportive and always there for me. Now I always try to look for relationships where I actually get out of it just as much as I put in. And I know that sounds a bit selfish. Of course, it is important to give and not expect anything in return, but I think that when you're constantly giving to other people and you're not receiving anything in return, it can be a bit of a negative relationship, and eventually you might just feel really drained and like you're not really left with anything at all. And now I try to only surround myself with people who give as much to me as I give to them. And I think that my relationships are just so much more positive because of that. I think that sometimes when our confidence is a little bit low, we just accept certain behaviors from people which we really shouldn't be accepting. And I think that sometimes we do need to put our foot down and to say that we deserve to be treated at a different standard. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. It is really important to protect yourself in life. And my final mistake in life was really not paying enough attention to myself and the way that I was feeling in certain situations. When I look back at my life and my career, I've worked in a couple of workplaces that were actually quite toxic. And at the time, I used to just think that I was overreacting and it wasn't really that bad. And I used to really beat myself up for complaining and being upset at work. And now that I look back at it, and now that I'm working in a place which has a really great culture and with people who are really supportive, I look back at those times and I think to myself, why didn't I just listen to myself? Why didn't I just pack up and go to another workplace because that workplace is toxic? I think that sometimes when we're feeling a certain way, it may mean that our environment isn't quite right for us. And I think it is important to just stay in tune with ourselves and realize that there might be something wrong and something that we need to change in our life. And that might be why we're feeling the way that we are. So what did you guys think of the mistakes that I've made in my life and the lessons that I've learned from them? And what kind of mistakes have you made in your life that you've also learned something new from? I would love to know your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. And if you appreciate this honesty and transparency, I would really appreciate a like on this video. If you'd like to see more videos, I've got some links to some videos here. So click through the links and click through to another video. Bye!